So my name is Joe Dolisi. I'm the CTO and CIO here at SolarWinds. I've been here for 9 years. Worked on a lot of the products originally, and then focused primarily on the platform through my team of architects. And basically, we've built what's called the Orion Platform, which basically is fueling and supporting a lot of the products that have been, SolarWinds very, very successful over the past 9 years. So started with a network performance monitor product, and then we added various products around that to actually cover the different parts of the IT infrastructure, so systems, application, storage, databases, and whatnot. So I thought that, the first thing is we have a little bit of a disclaimer here. We're a public company, or we were at least up until this morning. No, we are now a private company, but the disclaimer still stays. And a lot of things that we're going to talk about today are basically things that we are working on right now. And so there's a lot of things there where we can't commit to time frame, we can't commit to what release vehicle those will be. The only thing that we can tell you is that those things are being worked on. This is not just PowerPoint where a lot of it is actually worked on by development groups here at SolarWinds. And so what we're going to do is kind of talk a lot about where we are going. And so the first thing that I wanted to do is give you a brief overview. I'm going to remove those disclaimers because we talked about them. There's no need to actually get this in the background for too long. But the first thing is to talk about kind of what are the things that we talk about right now and think about internally at SolarWinds as we kind of think about the future of the next 12, 24, 36 months, basically, and what do we need to explain, kind of and include into our products to actually get, those products to still be relevant with the existing IT environment, basically, and where IT is going. And so I like to, if you look at my kind of previous presentations, I always like to, kind of play on the whiteboard. Here I have a split whiteboard, so I don't know how I'm going to do this yet. I'm maybe going to bring them in the middle or something like that. But basically the first thing is, well, maybe, I think it's going to be great. We're going to have a build and I can do my workout at the same time. It's great. The first thing is to think about, okay, so the IT infrastructure, how is this evolving over time? Historically, SolarWinds has been always like a on-premises company. With solutions that basically are deployed on-premises and monitoring on-premises hardware and IT infrastructure. Started with network and then, evolved with the other stuff. But at the bottom of the stack, your IT infrastructure is always made pretty much of the same thing. You've got compute, and this is really weird. You've got network, and then you've got storage. Those are the three basic ingredients that you need basically on your IT infrastructure to work. You need something to actually do something, but that's the compute. You've got your network that connects those compute together, and then usually you have some data that you need to read or write or process and whatnot, and that's your storage. And what you've seen is, over the years, what has happened is, you've got companies like VMware and whatnot have created a nice virtualization layer on top of that and creating pools of all of those things so that you don't have to manage elements anymore. You can think and apply policies at that level, basically. And that's the kind of interesting, that starts creating, a lot of, kind of great capabilities because you can start thinking in terms of aggregates and don't need really kind of to think about the different elements by themselves. And then on top of that, you've got, nowadays, you've got the other things like, things that is really popular right now is containers, which is kind of another apps, kind of another set of virtualization to some extent. It's nothing really, really new, but, it's really kind of taking off right now with companies like Dockers. And then what you have with this on top of it, typically, well, people were developing apps. And those were your enterprise apps like Exchange, IIS, Microsoft SQL Server. They are applications that basically are deployed on premises. They work and run on top of that IT infrastructure that run on premises. And they can be very complicated. And then you've got companies who actually build also their own applications. And basically, kind of this ecosystem kind of, has grown over time. And that's kind of pretty much what has been running the IT infrastructure for the past 20, 30 years, basically. Then what we've seen, so that's the, I guess, this is on-prem. What has come up over the last several years now, probably around, kind of 2009, really where it starts getting into its groove is what's called public cloud. It's the whole public cloud infrastructure thing. And there at the bottom, it's the same recipe. You've got compute, network, and storage, the exact same thing. It's just that you don't really own them. You basically kind of are using that as a service. So you've got compute, and storage, and that's what I would call the cloud IT. And then what you have at the bottom on top of that, basically, companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and whatnot have created APIs on top of that because you need some type of interface that is software so that you can actually interact with those levels. And basically, at the lower level, you've got what they call infrastructure as a service. That's IaaS, and basically, you've got APIs so that actually I can start a VM, I can start an EMI, I can start, I can provision some storage, whether it's in S3 or some block storage onto some type of, kind of device that's going to be hidden for me. And then what happened is a lot of those vendors like Azure and, Amazon and whatnot, basically, they also want to lock you in. So the best way for them to do that is they build their own platform on top of that, and they offer you services that are higher level service, like a queuing service, a messaging service, a database as a service, so that basically you as a consumer or an application author, you start targeting those APIs, and it makes it a lot more difficult for you to actually move to the other platforms because you're depending on those APIs that are proprietary. If you play at the IaaS level, those APIs are also to some extent proprietary, but at the end, a VM is a VM. And sure, you can, the APIs to actually promote and provision them are actually slightly different, but at the end of the day, conversion is still relatively easy at that level. And so you've got platform as a service is the next level of API around that. And then basically, what happened is you've got application developer develop application for cloud environments. That's what you see companies working completely in Amazon or working completely on Azure or, kind of a mix of that. Then what you have also, and I'll take this with me now. This is just interesting because we'll stitch it this way. So the last kind of type of IT infrastructure that you see now is the whole SaaS, kind of software as a service, where basically when I'm doing cloud or I'm doing on-premise, I still care about managing those different elements. I still care about managing myself the compute, even though I may not have the hardware in the cloud front, but I'm still responsible for actually provisioning that information and provisioning those systems, even though they may actually be completely logical and software. With the software as a service model, basically here at the infrastructure level, there's nothing that I need to manage. I'm just renting a service from you, and I don't care about what you use for compute. I don't care about what you use for storage. I don't care about what you use for network. The only thing, I'm paying you a little bit extra money because I don't want to care about this. And so what you see is you've got your SaaS apps are running on top of this. And if I'm using Salesforce, for instance, I don't care if they use 15 different data centers, that they replicate the data 5 times, that they have maybe one multi-tenant system for all of their customers, or they actually partition that differently. I don't give really any type of interest to that because I'm paying them some money for them abstracting all of that. But why do we, I went through this kind of 3 types of ITs right now because what you see in the modern world right now in which we live is that you have applications that actually are built at the layer above that. And basically they are what we call, hybrid apps. And basically those hybrid apps, they span those 3 types of ITs, where I may actually have a part of my application that actually runs on premise. I may have a part that runs in the cloud. And I may actually have a part that actually runs and depends on services that are actually in the cloud itself and as a service. And we don't have to look for that for very far. If I look here at SolarWinds, the way we kind of deal with leads coming from the website, that system is actually a hybrid application exactly architected this way. We have our website, it's hosted in a colo, and we manage all the hardware, we manage all the software that's on there. Basically, once you click this download button onto the SolarWinds website and you fill the registration form, that registration information is pushed into a cloud-based queuing system that's hosted in Azure. So we don't own any system that actually kind of deals with the high availability side of that. Then we have consumers that take that registration data and know and process that, and that basically kind of goes back to some servers that we have in our colocation here in Austin or in Denver. And then those different pieces of software push that data to to SaaS, so SaaS application like Marketo, NetSuite, Salesforce. It pushes them back to all other on-prem data. Like we have a marketing data warehouse, which is a really kind of large database that we have with all of our contacts, and we kind of track all of our customers. That's also on-prem. And so if you look at this, just that simple workflow of taking registration data and processing that and doing something with it. And we are in a world where basically we are spanning 3 different types of IT architecture. You know, we cross the on-prem, the cloud, and the SaaS world. And so we are not alone into that situation. A lot of companies have a lot of on-premises systems that they are invested into. They are not just moving everything to the cloud. Some of them are, but the vast majority of the companies that we see and we have as customers still are primarily focused on, on-premises system. They are making experiments and they are moving to the cloud for some new applications, but that doesn't mean that they are replacing all of their existing ones that are running on-premises with systems that are in the cloud. And then I don't think there's any company right now nowadays that at least doesn't have a few SaaS applications in their portfolio. Startups nowadays all run everything pretty much using SaaS application. Even if they use still Office, they use Office 365, most likely they actually use Google Apps and whatnot. And so this has been a reality for probably the past 10 years, and Salesforce has been one of the pioneers there. So all of that to kind of, think about this concept of hybrid, but also the kind of the apps themselves that are running on top of this. And then what you have on top of that is, I would call the management plane. That's where we live. That's where SolarWinds kind of works, and that's Orion here, plus some of the other products, that are running on top of that. We have 29 products right now. I think we probably have 20 of those products that run on top of Orion, and then we have others that have their own infrastructure. And that's really an on-premises world. We really kind of run from on-premise, and we manage really well the on-premise IT. That's kind of the state in which we are right now. And then you've got also the management plane where you've got vendors that are providing, SaaS-based management, and those are companies like Librado or Pingdom or, any of those companies where basically the only thing you do is you sign up, you don't have to deploy any type of software. They basically kind of do everything from the cloud, but you don't have to manage the parts that are in the cloud. They do that for you. And for instance, Librado, Papertrail, and Pingdom are basically 3 companies that we acquired over the past 18 months and basically are part of our product portfolio now and are giving us basically visibility and management capabilities now from a SaaS-based perspective and from the cloud. So that basically for some of those companies that actually want to start in the cloud, we don't have to force them into a model where they have to start with the on-premises investment. Okay? And so as you look at this, there are companies that start from this end, and those are typically the startups nowadays. They start from the world of SaaS. It's the only thing that they own usually are the laptops that you guys have, and most likely they are Macs, and the bare minimum amount of network infrastructure to support those Macs to connect to the internet. That's really what they have. And then as they grow, yes, sometimes they get a NAS, they get a SAN, or not a SAN, but they get some type of local storage if they need to, but that basically is the bare minimum.
So Joel, when you say SaaS management, you're really talking about SaaS management that covers all 3 domains, on-prem, cloud, and SaaS.
I'll get there, yes.
Oh, okay.
So typically, yes, so from each of those management boxes, their sphere of influence, I would say, is for us, okay, that's where we've been really, kind of, our stronghold has been. We can manage, from on-prem to on-prem, that's easy. But what we see customers wanting nowadays is, as they run those hybrid applications or making experiments in the cloud or even running real workloads in the cloud, they want us to be able to manage those apps as well from here. And I can also extend it to SaaS because to some extent, even if they are leveraging SaaS services, they still want to know if they can't reach that SaaS service. Is that the problem of the SaaS provider, or is that the problem on my infrastructure? Is that my network, or is it the network between my internal corporate network and basically the service provider of that service? So if you look at it, you can't just sit really anymore and say, I'm an on-prem guy, and I'm just going to monitor what's on-prem. All of those things are really kind of integrated with each other. And so if you don't have a management platform and management products that actually are capable of being deployed in one area, but cover the whole spectrum of applications from within that point of deployment, then you really don't have a solution that can handle today's challenges for people who are needing, kind of management solutions. And it's the same thing, it's the same thing here. SaaS in the past has been very oriented towards cloud IT. That's where you see a lot of vendors, I do AWS management, and you've got really great companies that have been awesome at doing that. And you've got companies that have been acquired by Google, for instance. They acquired, Stackdriver, I think, about 18 months ago. And, it's because they needed to provide management visibility into their cloud and they actually also got AWS visibility. But it's delivered as a software as a service offering, basically. Here, there's some value also at providing, some visibility into the reachability of your other SaaS application from the cloud and as a SaaS offering. But you see a lot of those SaaS management plane and applications, the way they work is either they use the APIs that are exposed by the cloud providers, or if they don't use that, and if you want to monitor just a regular OS like Linux or Windows, you need to deploy an agent usually on that. And so that gives them visibility also to on-premises system here, because usually those agents are internet friendly, they are firewall friendly, and so basically they will report data back to whoever is listening, whether that actually is on-premises or if it's in the cloud as a SaaS offering. And so that's why for us as a technology organization, as a software organization, we have to look at those two things, not as a either or, but it really is an and. Basically people are coming either from this kind of perspective or they are coming from this perspective. We have a lot more people in this area right now, but we also don't want to ignore right now, customers and future customers that are coming from this area and providing them, visibility into their infrastructure, but being, being deployed without having to deploy anything on premises. So that's kind of where the context is for a lot of things that, Chris and Stephen will actually show you around some of the projects that we are talking on. It's keep in mind this context because that's kind of how we think about right now the overall, I would say, IT management and IT stack in general, and how basically our portfolio will be shaped around that. Now, there's been a lot of, often we get the question, so, does that mean that you are actually, kind of going away from the on-premises world where you've been so successful? And not at all. And it should be clear from this that basically for us, it's an and strategy. It's not like, we need to move to the cloud. If you look at the amount of revenue that is still generated from on-premises system right now, it may grow slower, but the amount of money right now that is being made from on-premises compared to the cloud world is still, tremendously much more, larger than, this world here will generate. This world will grow faster, but you're starting from much tinier number. And so for us, it's an evolution. It's not a revolution. We don't feel the need that we absolutely need kind of to put now all of our eggs into the cloud and the SaaS world just because that's what people are talking about. Okay? Yes?
Just a quick question. So you're saying that you are going to manage everything with your current platform, Orion, but the quality and the quantity of metrics that you have from public cloud and especially SaaS are totally different from what we can measure and do on the on-premises platform. So also the interfaces and eventually also the API that you are going to expose could be very different.
Sure, and by us saying that we're going to extend, that doesn't mean that we don't have to do any work, As you said, if you want to monitor AWS right now, well, you have to go through their APIs to actually get to at least the basic set of information that basically is provided there. That's CloudWatch and others. But even that, if you just stay at that level, that's usually not enough. There's a mix of information that's from within the VM itself and what CloudWatch is providing you. That's what is giving you the right perspective. The frequency of the data also, in a lot of those systems here, you see a migration or an evolution of IT in general where people want more real-time visibility into their system, And that's something also that we are taking into account as we are evolving the platform to be able to kind of handle more of those real-time systems and not just, being happy with polling, every few minutes like, it used to be okay to do that basically, even a few years ago. Again, it's an evolution. We know that there's a lot of work to be done with that, but again, we're not trying to kind of reinvent the wheel from scratch because we believe that the software stack that we have right now and the platform that we have right now can actually be evolved into this to support those additional data sources, frequency of data, and things like that.
Joel, one question. So the SaaS management for, well, not SaaS, but anything that manages your SaaS applications like Salesforce, what sort of capabilities do you really provide there? I mean, number of seats that are using it, number of transactions. I mean, it's kind of limited, right?
So right now, what we're really focusing on is how is the delivery of what's the experience It's more end user experience related right now because typically what happens is, okay, we all use. I mean, in this building, a lot of people use NetSuite, and invariably somebody's complaining that this screen takes a long time to refresh right now, and that goes to a help desk, and so. What are we supposed to do from a help desk perspective, to try to diagnose that? Do we know that that's happening first of all, ahead of time, as more proactively? If that's not the case, can we actually maybe trace back that transaction and see maybe we have a network problem? Maybe that network problem is on premises, in this building. Maybe it's our service provider. Maybe it's some routing that changed between this building and where actually NetSuite is actually being delivered from, or maybe it actually is at NetSuite. And one of the things that we see is there's always this kind of exchange or ping pong game where you've got this problem, and then you try to figure out who's the one to call to actually fix it. And that's where we are more kind of looking at, and actually it's a great dovetail because that's exactly what he's going to talk to you about.
What about monitoring of connectors? A lot of, especially in a hybrid, you have like connectors into the cloud space. Is that also something you're planning?
That's one of the areas that I think we are going to have to go eventually. Right now, this is not the short-term focus for us. But again, yes, those, a lot of those things have data integrations between them, and if you look at things like Hadoop and things like that, they require a lot of data to come in, to be kind of in certain areas, making sure that those processes are running. We have data products, but they are not focusing on that right now. They're still, I would say, focused more of the data storage and data execution in the engine itself, and not so much of the interaction and the how those things are stitched together. But that's one area there where I'd like us to go eventually, because I think that the next thing is when you tell me my database server is working well, if it doesn't have the data to work on, then that's the problem.
The hybrid layer that kind of spans across all three domains, you consider that an application or a workflow or a data flow or?
Well, I guess that gets to semantic, but for me, I still call that an app. If I look at, or part of an app, like the example that I used, which is
like 12 applications in that scenario,
yes,
right? Really?
Yes,
yeah.
Or there are maybe 12 services, that basically that one app is the umbrella. So I think people call that differently, but at the end, it's something that actually is, an umbrella of various things that actually solves one business problem, which for us is, okay, people are registering their information for downloading software. Yeah. We need to take action based on that.